I just tell the truth, and telling the truth is crazy in a world full of lies. If you mix brilliance with bravery, that we can ignite something. Even this conversation alone can ignite the people.
The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your girl Kelly, and we are back again with another video. I want to thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me here. And if you are new, please go ahead and consider joining, guys. Click that subscribe button. Smash that subscribe button, guys. I am so close to 2,000 subscribers. Like, even though I have not moved, like my numbers have not moved because I feel like YouTube hates me and just like purposefully like does not put my videos in the algorithm. Still, you know, if you're here somehow, we're together. Please hit that subscribe button, guys. I promise you won't regret it. And if you're not new here, then thank you guys so much for joining me. As always, thank you for being a friend to the channel, and I appreciate you guys. So guys, as you can see from the warning, I'm gonna flash this here, and then we're gonna flash it again when we cut. That was not the conspiracy theory, by the way, that I was talking about just now, about the whole YouTube, you know, like stopping my video from like gaining any traction or views or new subscribers or anything like that. I mean, it's just, that's not the conspiracy theory, that's real. But we will be getting into one, and I will be flashing this message again. So today we're doing another video in the series, Which Would You Rather, guys. So we're going to get into some things. So I wanted to put this here because I didn't want any trouble from the YouTube jailers or from anyone else in the government or just any sort of you know, hating ass hoes, if you will, that might be watching. This is a, you know, this is a disclosure for you guys. Everything in this video is alleged and for entertainment purposes. Please do your own research, and just a reminder, guys, always trust your government, okay? That is the #1 rule in life. So what are we going to get into today, guys? We are talking about Would You Rather, the ATF versus the CIA. And if you guys are new to the channel, this is a series I do sometimes on my channel where I talk about government conspiracies, cover-ups, or just, you know, fuck-ups, basically failures of our government that are either known and documented on record, or they might be alluded to in some cases, like one of the ones we're going to be talking about today. So in the past, I've done ones that were kind of like more cut and dry, and this one is more of a conspiracy theory, the one on the right. If you guys don't know, it's Oklahoma City bombing, and then we'll also be talking about the Fast and Furious gun walking operation that was done and proven to be done during the Obama administration. So without further ado, guys, let's get on into it. And again, please hit that subscribe button. Please like the video, guys. Leave a comment. Let me know how y'all liking the videos. Like, please, you know, interact. So hopefully my videos can have a standing chance to be seen by other people, and I'm not just making all these videos in vain, because I really would like to see this channel grow. And if you guys are into it, then yeah, help me out. So also, I do have, if you would like to donate to the channel and to me personally, I would very much appreciate that. All that information is going to be in the description box down below, as will all of my sources for everything that I'll be referencing today in the video. So check it out whenever you're done watching, okay? Okay, so guys, without any further ado, I want to get into our first thing, and this has actually nothing to do with, oh my god, Ollie, really? Alright guys, so first thing we're going to get into, we'll move on to the topics at hand. So apparently, Trump, you know, that evil orange man, he is dog whistling again, guys. Can you believe it? I cannot believe it, but in a way, I guess I can. So, yeah, apparently he's doing a dog whistle and sending coded messages to far right with the location of the next rally. And so you might ask yourself, well, what does that mean? Because that's exactly what I asked. But then it dawned on me, because I know that his next rally is in Waco, Texas, which is not abnormal. Like, I mean, he has rallies in Texas all the time. This is like one of his states that he goes to and visits and does these things at. And I don't feel like Waco is an odd choice. He usually goes to smaller towns outside of larger cities. Waco's outside of Dallas. But they go on to say, Trump plans to hold a rally this Saturday in the city of Waco, Texas, on the anniversary of the infamous ATF siege that ended in the fiery deaths of cult leader David Koresh and over 80 of his followers, including 25 children. The event has been a rallying point for many in far-right and anti-government movements, including Timothy McVeigh, who carried out the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City in 1995, which caused the deaths of 198 people, including 19 children. So, that's okay. I see what y'all are trying. So, they're trying to link him to these events and the far-right anti-government movement and trying to say that he is signaling to people. You know, he's dog whistling to the far right. So I just thought that was pretty damn bold, pretty telling of the mainstream media, and just indicative of what lengths they're willing to go to to try to tear down Trump and end this man's political career and possibly his life, because what the fuck? Like, he can't hold a rally in Waco, Texas now? But I always thought that was interesting because it linked the whole Oklahoma City bombing. And that's one of the topics we're going to get into today, guys. But we're going to get to that one last. So let's save that. We're going to first talk about the Operation Fast and Furious. Have you guys heard of this? No? Well, if you have, what do you know about it? What do you think about it? Maybe we can learn something new today. Let's see. So if you haven't heard of this, it is a ATF notorious gun-walking scandal. And this really came to a head under the Obama administration. So this article is from the Libertarian Institute. So I will link this in the description because it's a long article and I'm not going to read the whole thing. But it has good information. And another person at the center of this all was Eric Holder, the Attorney General under Obama. Okay. So it starts off here. Says the ATF isn't all bad. In fact, they had a policy of letting illegal gun purchases go between 2006 and 2011. It ended up getting U.S. Border Patrol agent Brian Terry killed on December 14th, 2010, and let Mexican criminals get enough guns that they were found at over 150 crime scenes where Mexican citizens were either killed or maimed. And some of the guns were used in the November 2005 terrorist attack in Paris at the Bataclan. But other than that, it turned out just fine. In case you're not picking up on it, we're laying on the sarcasm very thick right now. You guys are funny. Funny article. Anyways, you probably know what was officially called Project Gunrunner as Operation Fast and Furious. Started under George W. Bush, this ATF policy audaciously grew under Obama and became indicative of the perceived attack on American gun owners by both policymakers and their friends in the establishment media. It's one of the many scandals of the Obama administration that was never given as much press attention as, for example, Russia buying Facebook ads about NoFap and Pizzagate. Given that the gun runs by the ATF were allowed to kill hundreds, and that subsequent congressional investigations resulted in Eric Holder, President Obama's Attorney General, becoming the first sitting cabinet member to be held in criminal contempt of Congress ever, this is shocking, at least for anyone still under the illusion that the establishment media is a fair and impartial source of information. Okay, so this talks about the original Project Gunrunner, and it talks about Randy Weaver and the Ruby Ridge and all of that. We have already kind of discussed all of that. This was the beginning stages of this operation, but I'm going to skip over some of this. And again, this is more of the early instances of this happening. Okay, so Operation Fast and Furious. As stated above, Operation Fast and Furious was one of the several such operations. The name itself is related to the fact that the suspects were involved in car racing. It simply picked up the gun-walking practices which had been going on previously as if they were new again. The operation began when a firearms dealer contacted the ATF about a suspicious purchase. Unlike Operation Wide Receiver, many of these purchases involved hundreds of weapons. What's more, there was no official collaboration between the firearms dealer and the ATF. Perhaps most disturbing is that both Mexican law enforcement officials and the Mexico City office of the ATF were left completely in the dark about what was going on. In January 2010, the ATF applied for and received additional funding and was recognized as a strike force that included members of the ATF, FBI, DEA, and ICE, run through the United States Attorney's Office rather than under the jurisdiction of the ATF. Interesting. A lot of alphabet agencies right there, guys. A lot of them that I would love to see disbanded and defunded altogether. But that's neither here nor there. The weapons dealers started raising red flags because they kept seeing the same straw buyers over the course of months, purchasing the same weapons over and over again, which is highly unusual. And this is also highly suspicious and highly illegal. If you know anything about gun buying or gun selling, you know that if somebody comes in and starts buying multiple guns and the same guns over and over again, that should raise a red flag on you. Like, I used to work in a pawn shop, and I sold guns, and there was a rigorous, procedures put into place in order for us to be able to sell the guns to people. And we had to be on the lookout, be attentive to the conversations that people were having. There would be times where people would come in and be talking like they were going to buy the gun for their significant other. They might be buying it for a friend. We had to listen and be diligent about what people were talking about and pay attention so that we're not selling a gun that might end up in the hands of someone who is not filling out the background check for the gun. So, I mean, this is already very weird. And the fact that it seems like after we found out everything that we found out, the ATF not only knew about these gun purchases that were happening, but they facilitated and probably sent in people that were part of the agency or doing undercover sting work to actually do these purchases. So very, very sketchy tactics by the ATF. Once again, probably the most corrupt agency out of all of the research that I have done into all these agencies. The ATF is literally one of the worst. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to choose. It really is. And we don't know the half of what the CIA does, so God only knows. But ATF has just been caught with their dick in their hands a lot. Okay, the weapons dealers started raising red flags because they kept... Okay, I'm sorry. I already read all that. Okay, standard practice is that the dealers tend to only see straw buyers again at trial, if at all. What's more, the ATF generally arrests the straw buyer and members of the larger criminal organization at the point of transfer, confiscating the weapons in the process. Not only did this not happen under Operation Fast and Furious, but top brass within the ATF prevented agents on the ground from following standard operating procedure. So, all told, by June 2010, suspects surveyed under Operation Fast and Furious had purchased over 1,600 weapons at a total spend of over $1 million. At that time, I cannot talk today, y'all. At that time, not at the end of the operation, the ATF were aware of over 300 of these weapons being found at crime scenes, 179 in Mexico and 130 in the United States. To put it bluntly, the ATF facilitated gun trafficking that resulted in crimes on American soil. So then came the death of Brian Terry, who was a U.S. Border Patrol agent, and he was killed when they encountered some illegal aliens at the border. And they had a shootout with these guys, and in the resulting aftermath, Brian Terry was shot dead, and they ended up finding two AK-47s, I believe, that were bought during this program, and that were then sold to the Mexican cartels, and were then allowed to kill a U.S. Border Patrol agent. So this is when things started to catch the eye of Congress, and different people started to get upset. And they actually had a whistleblower come out and alert Senator Chuck Grassley. So let's see where it is. Okay. Eventually, ATF agent John Dodson contacted Senator Grassley of Iowa, ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, who is the major force behind investigating the ATF's practice of gun walking. So, and this effectively marked the end of Operation Fast and Furious. So of these, 389 were recovered in the United States, 276 in Mexico, with the balance remaining on the streets. In at least one case, ATF agent John Dodson was directly involved in the transfer of firearms to a known weapons trafficker, meaning the Mexican cartel, and the ATF was selling weapons to people that were enemies of the United States. You know, drug cartels, you know, ISIS, things like that. They were selling weapons to people like that. Okay, so very interesting things happening there. So you might ask, what happened to the rest of all the guns? Well, they don't really know. The government has no idea, and they never will have any idea until they show up at a crime scene and they end up being able to run serial numbers. If the serial numbers are still on the weapons, then, you know, we'll never know. We'll just never actually know. So I want to get into, I did want to get into some videos, but I just wanted this last paragraph. So, because it made me feel a little bit better, but not really, because I still want to see the ATF go down in flames, you know, not literally, but figuratively, whatever. The ATF's budget is currently frozen at 2016 levels, an effective budget cut given inflation and built-in increased expenses like salaries and rent. It does not have a Senate-approved director, in part because of this scandal and what some believe is a Trump administration directive to slow choke off the government alphabet agencies, which is one of the most hated among his base. So, yeah, I would say so. As a parting thought, it is worth noting that this is the worst thing that the ATF has been caught doing since the attack on Randy Weaver's family or the incineration of women and children at Waco. This raises the important question of what it is that they're doing and what we currently don't know about. Yeah, I would love to know. So if you guys want to read more into this article, I will link it. But until then, let's see what, actually, I want to see what Obama had to say in regards to this scandal.
Complains that they were not informed about the fasten.
Oh, hang on.
Did you authorize this operation, and was President Calderon properly informed about it?
Well, first of all, I did not authorize it. Eric Holder, the Attorney General, did not authorize it. He's been very clear that
Really?
Our policy is to catch gun runners and put them in jail.
Really?
So what he's done is he's assigned an IG, an Inspector General, to investigate what exactly happened
So
here.
who authorized it?
Well, we don't have all the facts. That's why.
You're an idiot. You're an idiot. So he didn't authorize it. Eric Holder didn't know about it, who's the U.S. Attorney General. So instead, they have to ask the Inspector, Agent Attorney General, or whatever. Ask damn Inspector Gadget. He'd probably have more answers than these two idiots. So let's get into Eric Holder. Let's see what he had to say. Obama didn't know anything about it. What about Eric Holder? Did he know anything? This guy, I don't know who this is. This Issa,
Gentleman from
Congressman.
California, Mr. Issa is recognized.
Issa,
Thank you, Mr.
sorry.
Chairman.
He's a beast. This man, he tears into Eric Holder. I had never seen this footage, obviously, but I liked it.
Attorney
I liked it a
General?
lot.
December 14, 2010, Brian Terry was gunned down, and we began knowing more about Fast and Furious shortly thereafter. But you have said, people representing you have said repeatedly you didn't know about it before then. I've sent you a number of letters. Senator Grassley sent you a number of letters. You mentioned in your opening statement the Speaker's letter. The Speaker did not limit the scope of the subpoenas you're under an obligation to respond to. He simply asked you for a response to two key areas. He did not revoke any subpoenas. However, you implied that we were working together, when in fact, since May 18th, nothing has come from your department, not one shred of paper. I want to ask you, first of all, today, have you and your attorneys produced internally the materials responsive to the subpoenas?
We believe that we have responded to the subpoena.
No, Mr. Attorney General, you're not a good witness. A good witness answers the question asked. So let's go back again. Have you and your attorneys produced internally the materials responsive? In other words, have you taken the time to look up our subpoena and find out what material you have responsive to it, or you've simply invented a privilege that doesn't exist?
You're saying internally. Have we?
Internally, have you pulled all that information?
We've looked at 240 custodians. We have processed millions of electronic records, and we've reviewed over 140,000 documents and produced to you about 7,600.
So 140,000 documents. How many documents are responsive but you are withholding at this time?
Well, we produced 7,600.
Look, I don't want to hear about the 7,600.
Chairman, I would beg to allow...
The lady is out of order with the lady, please.
Chairman, parliamentary
My time.
inquiry. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I would beg to allow the...
Oh my God, I love this man. Is he? I need to find out who and where he is, because the way he just cut that woman off, it just made me like, oh my God, this is another strong alpha male. We love this energy. And he said, "Bitch, don't. I'm speaking right now." He said, "No, ma'am. And I liked it. I liked the way he did that because she wanted to interrupt and say, Mr. Chairman, he's being mean to the witness. And it's like, bitch, no. He owes the American people some answers. And you want to kowtow for him, ma'am. You want to sit up there and say, he's being too mean. Well, you know what? We don't care about you, woman. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. But I just love him. I love the energy he's bringing to the Senate hearing. I love the questions he's asking. I love his tone of voice. I love everything about it. I hope he's still in Congress, but I don't know if he is. It's a mystery. So let's fast forward a little bit to the end where he asks the same question that other man just asked Obama. Who's responsible for this? Does anyone in this administration know? Let's see what he says.
Mr. Chairman, will he be allowed to answer the question now?
Attorney General will be allowed to answer the question, but I'd appreciate no more interruptions. So
You know what?
Regular order now, Mr.
Responsible, Mr. Attorney General.
All right.
Former Director Melson, anyone reading these, according to him, would be sick to their stomach because they would be immediately aware
Does
of
he have a question, Mr. Chairman?
So, who is responsible, Mr. Attorney General?
All right. You really conflated a bunch of things here. The responsibility...
You've delivered so little.
Regular order
well.
now, Mr. Chairman. Will he be allowed to answer the question now?
The Attorney General will be allowed to answer the question, but I'd appreciate no more interruptions so the AG can answer the question.
The responsibility about which you speak is, in fact, the responsibility of a Deputy Assistant Attorney General
Oh,
looking
really?
at those summaries to make sure that there is a basis to go into court and to ask that court to grant the wiretap based on a determination that a responsible official makes that probable cause exists to believe that a wire facility has been used in the commission of a crime. They do not look at the affidavits to see if, in fact, to review all that is engaged, all that is involved in the operation. I have read those now. I've read those. I've read them from Wide Receiver as well. And I can say that what has happened in connection with Fast and Furious was done in the same way as wiretap applications were done under the previous administration in Wide Receiver. I've looked at the summaries, and they acted in a way that's consistent with the practice and the responsibility that they have as defined by the statute.
Thank you, Mr. Issa. The gentleman from...
So again, he is taking the blame off of himself, trying to word salad his way out of responsibility and say, well, you know, it was another guy and, you know, policies and procedures. And I just, you know, we need to like, look at the last administration, the way they did it. You know, they did it the same way we did and we're just following along. You know what, sir? I'm going to let this man handle you some more because you obviously don't get it. And that's why he was the only sitting the only sitting cabinet member throughout all of American politics that was criminally in contempt of Congress, because that is how he acted throughout all of these procedures. Did not want to answer straightforward. And we see this all the time now. I mean, we've covered things like this. The way these Senate hearings go is so maddening. And it is so frustrating, and I honestly feel like they do this on purpose to like try to like enrage people because, and it works, you know. But it really gets you nowhere. It just lets you see the utter like lying and the just like the farce that's going on right in front of our face. And if you're paying attention, you can clearly see it, and you can see who's lying and who's covering up by the way that they answer their questions in the Senate hearings. And if you're not really paying attention, then this doesn't really go anywhere. But it's interesting, no less. And to see it in hindsight, you can clearly tell what's going on here. So let's get into a couple more videos. This one is from Fox News, and this was a news report about the aftermath of Operation Fast and Furious.
The explosive twist in that botched federal gun sting known as Operation Fast and Furious. New documents appear to show that back in 2010, agents of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms picked up the main gun-running suspect. But then for reasons that escape us, they let the guy go. William Lajeunesse is live at our West Coast newsroom with more on this. William.
Well, Shepard, this could be the most damning evidence yet that the ATF deliberately armed Mexico's Sinaloa drug cartel in hopes of catching the big fish. Here's why. Now, until now, we've been told that the ATF did not arrest those who were buying guns illegally because the agency lacked probable cause. But according to an ATF report, early in 2010, on the Arizona-Mexican border, agents stopped ringleader Manuel Salas Acosta trying to smuggle 74 rounds of AK-47 ammunition hidden in his trunk. Agents arrested him and called the ATF agent who was working the case. Acosta told her that he was going to Mexico to help set up a drug trafficking business at a birthday party of a big marijuana dealer and the right-hand man of Mexico's most wanted man, El Chapo Guzman, leader of the Sinaloa cartel. Well, the ATF had already known that Acosta and his gang had bought 1,100 assault weapons for $700,000.
Oh, wow.
How? Well, they had telephone pole-mounted cameras outside his house, and they saw money and guns change hands. Well, now they actually had Acosta smuggling ammunition illegally. So what happened? They let him go. The case agent wrote her phone number on a $10 bill and told him to call when he returned to the U.S. Well, he did come back, but there's no evidence that he ever called or cooperated. Critics say this shows this wasn't about probable cause. It was about deliberately sending guns south, either to build a bigger case or to drive a political agenda. Either way, Shepard, it wasn't about public safety. Another 1,000 guns were sold to Acosta's group before the death of Brian Terry, the border agent, and there was no cooperation, no comment from the ATF. Back to you.
William Lajeunesse, live in Los
You don't say. Not for political reasons or for possible, to push an agenda. Would the government ever do something like that? I'm hearing this for the first time. That's insane. That's very crazy to hear. So, yeah, this guy was going to a birthday. He said, let him go. He's going to a birthday party. He's one of us. He is part of a sting operation, lady. What are you doing? Why are you doing your job? Why are you stopping people and trying to arrest them for having illegal ammunition in their trunk? Can you please get it together? You're making us look bad. Just act cool, okay? My goodness. Women, right? I mean, this is what you get with women police officers, guys. This is what you get. And then here, we had another murder linked to ATF's Fast and Furious operation.
Handcuffed and surrounded by hooded captors in Mexico last fall, making a forced statement on video. Rodriguez was the brother of Attorney General for the Mexican state of Chihuahua, and his body was found a month later.
Oh, no.
CBS News has confirmed that 2 AK-47 variant assault rifles were among weapons found at the shootout with suspects, rifles from ATF's controversial Fast and Furious operation. That's the case in which agents say they let thousands of guns be sold to suspected traffickers from Mexican drug cartels. CBS News has learned that the day before last week's congressional hearing, U.S. officials privately informed Mexico's Attorney General about the link to the killing. 2 assault rifles were also found at the murder scene of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry last December, and others in the stash of suspected drug cartel members who shot at a Mexican government helicopter in recent weeks.
Oh, wow.
All weapons believed to be sold on ATF's watch in the plan to let them walk on the streets and lead them to the big fish in the drug cartels. The lead ATF agent in that controversial case was Hope McAllister. In last week's hearing, agents said she ignored their concerns.
Eyewitness Special Agent Dodson asked both Special Agent McAllister and Group Supervisor Voth if they were prepared to attend the funeral of a slain agent or officer after he or she was killed with one of those straw purchase firearms. Neither one answered or even seemed concerned by the question posed to him.
Yesterday, ATF awarded that very agent being criticized, McAllister, the National ATF Life-Saving Award.
Oh, wow.
Nobody from ATF would tell us exactly what that award is for. Later today, a bipartisan team from Congress will fly to Mexico as the next phase of their investigation moves south of the border. Jeff?
My goodness, what a web we have woven here, guys. What do y'all think of this? Did y'all know anything about this operation? Obviously, this was covered by some news agencies, but not given the attention that it deserved, because this is a huge deal. And this goes to show you why all the people that are screaming and crying about like guns and making further gun regulations, having gun control, they're uninformed, and it's a stupid argument to be made, because we have things like this going on. And most people don't even know about these sorts of things. Most people don't know that the ATF is working in tandem with Mexican cartels, selling the Mexican drug dealers and criminals guns, not letting Mexican president and the ATF office in Mexico know about their wicked plans. And so, what, they were going to let these guns go across the border, and then, what, you're going to monitor these people in another country? How do you plan to do that without letting the office in Mexico know? Seems like a weird plan. Or is it more likely that they wanted to create chaos and further gun crimes in order to push agendas like gun control? And maybe cause a little bit more chaos by selling these guns to criminals, knowing that they would eventually end up in the hands of more criminals, and then not really suspecting what exactly might happen, but knowing that it wasn't going to be good, whatever it was. I don't know, guys. What do y'all think? I don't want to give too much of my opinion, because, again, these are sensitive topics and everything is alleged, right? We're all just chit-chatting here on this here interweb, so I'd love to know what y'all's thoughts are on it, though, guys. And so before we get into the next topic, again, YouTube people, I just want to say, that this is all made up. Everything that you're about to hear from this point on, it's all a joke. you know, these are just funny, hee hee, haha, entertainment only topics. You know, I'm just presenting it, information that's already on the internet. And, you know, this is not any of my own personal feelings. I trust the government with my whole heart. So I just want to say that, you know, before we start anything. So let's move on to our next story, okay? This is from the Corbett Report, and I read this article, guys, and it was amazing. I thought it was very funny. Again, this is for entertainment purposes, so I laughed, you know, and it was very well written, and I like this guy. So if you guys want to check out his website here, it has some good stuff. So let's get into this. Okay, on the morning of April 19th, 1995, a decorated Gulf War combat vet blew up the federal building in Oklahoma City using a truck bomb that he didn't build in a Ryder truck that he didn't rent with the help of a passenger who didn't exist. Having just gotten away with the largest act of terrorism on U.S. soil to date, the Fort Bragg-trained Special Forces sheep-dipped dropout blended in with the crowd by making his getaway in a car without a license plate and was immediately pulled over. The ATF was the supposed target of the attack, but luckily all of their agents were out of the office that morning. Later that day, the president boldly declared, "We will find the people who did this." We will find the people who did this, and when we do, justice will be swift, certain, and severe. And I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Okay. Except for John Doe number 2, who, according to the FBI, never existed. In McVeigh's unprecedented 3.5-week trial, the prosecution didn't show the CCTV footage of him and John Doe number 2 parking the Ryder truck, didn't explain why 24 separate witnesses mass hallucinated the existence of John Doe number 2, didn't explain why the government was testing truck bombs and the Army was storing Ryder trucks at Camp Gruber right before the bombing, and didn't talk to the FBI informants who blew the whistle on the plot. But they did collaborate with the CIA, and they did convict McVeigh as the lone wolf bomber and Terry Nichols as his bomb-constructing accomplice. Still, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists, including 300 bombing victims, okay, insist on talking about facts and evidence and refuse to simply believe what they've been told 1,000,000 times by people in tailored suits with well-coiffed hair. They quote the U.S. Air Force Brigadier General and the FBI crime lab whistleblower and the inventor of the neutron bomb, who point out the physical impossibility that the Ryder truck bomb did the damage to the building. But that doesn't matter, because if there were other bombs in the building that day, we would have heard about them, right? The FBI claims to have lost the footage showing McVeigh and John Doe number 2 parking the truck in front of the Murray building that morning. But that's understandable, because the Bureau has a lot of important evidence to store. So you can't expect them to keep everything, guys. I mean, this is only like one of the biggest events in, you know, American criminal history, but whatever. There was a bomb squad truck parked across the street 2 hours before the blast, but that just shows the authorities were prepared for anything. And someone called the Executive Secretariat's office at the Justice Department in Washington and said the Murray building had been bombed, but this was 24 minutes before the blast. But that just shows the public was unusually vigilant that morning. Also, the governor of Oklahoma's brother wrote a book before the attack in which a Tom McVeigh plots to blow up a federal building, but that's probably just a coincidence. McVeigh wrote a letter to his sister where he admitted to being a secret Special Forces operative, and he complained to friends of the pain in his ass from an Army-implanted microchip. But that's crazy, because if he didn't actually leave the Army in 1991, there would be proof of that. This man never existed, and if you say otherwise, you're a crazy government-hating nutjob who deserves to be locked in a cage for the rest of your life. Likewise, him, her, them, her, him, and him and him. And these are all people that came out and were either investigating or calling into question the official story about the Oklahoma City bombing. I did not have time to pull up all of these links, but I will link this particular article in the description. And this article is so well written that, like, literally he has all of his links like within the article. So if you want to like click on each of these things that he's talking about, all these hyperlinks, it takes you right to where you need to be. Very, very well done. A+ for this. And it's so well written. I mean, my goodness, it just like paints a picture. It's beautiful. So, McVeigh was not executed on May 16, 2001 as scheduled because the FBI withheld thousands of documents from McVeigh's lawyers, but that doesn't matter because the execution went ahead anyway on June 11th. In a highly unusual and secret agreement, no autopsy was performed, and one witness said he was still breathing, and the prison officials admitted his hearse was a decoy. Then the case was officially closed. This is the story of OKC as told to you by the same truth tellers behind the Seville story and the Brian Williams and the Ingo kidnapping. And if you have questions about any part of this story, you are a paranoid wingnut, birther, truther, tenther, prepper, conspiracy loon who should feel guilty for having been born. If you love baseball, fluffy kittens, hot dogs, Barbie, Star Wars, and freedom, you will never ever bring up any of these points ever again. Ever! This message has been brought to you by the friends of the FBI, ATF, DOJ, CIA, SPLC, MSM, and the U.S. Army. And remember, ignorance is strength. Well done, sir. I like your style. I do. So check out his website, guys, for more articles like this. Very good stuff. And I think he has a podcast too. But yeah, so what did y'all think of that, guys? I mean, obviously he's right. Don't be a conspiracy theorist, okay? Trust the narrative. So let's get into the path. Okay, this is what the officials are alleging Timothy McVeigh did on that fateful day. So basically, he had a Ryder truck, which again held explosives, apparently. Some call into question whether or not these explosives that were housed within this truck were even powerful enough to have exploded half of the building that was eventually damaged, and like a third, I believe they said a third of the building was completely taken out, and the target supposedly was the ATF. But it's weird because the ATF agents weren't in the office that day. Like, they had been called out to work and told not to come in. Very weird, very odd how those sorts of things seem to happen. I seem to remember something about that, like, happening during September 11th, like, where certain government agencies that were housed in those towers, or Tower 7, were actually not in the, not at work those days. So, very weird how that sometimes seems to happen, right? So, at 8:57, McVeigh parks the truck on the roadside and lights the 5-minute fuse. So, apparently there was different bombs in the truck, and they were like time-released bombs. But there was also some reporting that there were other bombs found, like after the initial explosion went off. There were news reports that there were possible other bombs found. But we're going to get into that. And then at 9 o'clock, McVeigh lights the 2-minute fuse. So he travels down the road, lights the first fuse, lights the second fuse a little further down the road, and then he parks it in front of the Murray building. At 9:01, he parks the truck on the sidewalk in front of the building and walks off. And then you can see his path here. He makes his way up the street, then makes a right, goes a little bit further up to the location of the vehicle, which is down here. And at 9:02, he was about 2 blocks away when the bomb went off. So this happened in 5 minutes. He lit 2 fuses and was able to park the car and walk off and get the hell out of Dodge before the explosion initially went off. And then he continued furthering up a few more blocks to get to his escape vehicle. So let's get into this, guys. There was no CCTV footage found. Or it was found, but it was never to be seen by any news agency that requested to see it. The U.S. government took control of it immediately after the bombings happened and would not release it. Why? I don't know. You would think that sunlight is the best disinfectant that one could have, and if there was doubts about the validity of this bombing, or if there was doubts whether or not that there was a second suspect, or they'd be able to find that out pretty quickly from the video footage, right? And if they have the video footage, then why not release it? But as usual, our government has all kinds of answers and excuses for you. So at first it was they couldn't release it because it was part of an active FBI investigation, very serious government business. So no, you can't see it with your peasant eyes. And then later, when people still wouldn't let it go, it was that it got lost. The footage was lost, guys. We messed up, Sorry. Sue us, Oh, that's right. You try to and you can't, because we're not giving you the footage, you piece of shit peon. Go back to your cave and eat the bugs, okay? That's what they want to tell you. So let's get into this. This is going to be like somewhat of a reenactment of what witnesses said happened on that day.
The News Channel has new information tonight that there's a chance surveillance tapes could be the channel report.
Our new information comes directly from a source that has seen parts of those surveillance tapes. It also comes from reports now in the Los Angeles Times. But perhaps the biggest surprise is contained in the News Channel's own information. Timothy McVeigh was not the last person to leave the Ryder truck. In fact, another man sat inside the cab of the truck after McVeigh got out. We believe that man is John Doe number 2, a man who, for all we know, is still on the loose, leaving open a vital question. Was it John Doe number 2 who actually set off the bomb, not Timothy McVeigh, as we've all been led to believe? News Channel 4 has for weeks been demanding copies of the surveillance tapes from the FBI. The federal government so far is dragging its feet. But many people in the investigation have seen the tapes, and now so has a source willing to describe to the News Channel what the tapes show. The LA Times report shows there was a surveillance camera near the corner of 5th and Harvey, and another near the corner of 5th and Robinson. Federal investigators recreated the time sequence leading up to the bombing by matching the video and still photos from the surveillance cameras. Since we can't show you the tape ourselves, we're reenacting what our source says he saw on those tapes. As witnesses told the News Channel before, the tape showed the Ryder truck parked in front of the Murrah building where we now know the blast went off. As witnesses also told us, the tape showed 2 men sitting inside the Ryder truck. A man strongly resembling Timothy McVeigh gets out of the driver's side, steps down. He then appears to have dropped something on the step up into the truck. He bends down and appears to pick something up off the step. Then he turns and walks directly across 5th Street toward the Journal Record building. All this time, John Doe number 2 is still inside the Ryder truck's cab, sitting on the passenger side. Time passes. The surveillance tape is time-lapse photography. Without knowing exactly the time interval between shots, our source can't be sure how long John Doe number 2 sat in that cab. What was he doing all that time? Then the tape shows John Doe number 2 getting out of the passenger side of the Ryder truck. Again, the tape shows that a bombing witness accurately described what happened next to News Channel 4.
I was standing in the building, and I was looked out the window, and I seen the Ryder's truck, and I seen a man get out of the Ryder's truck.
The tape shows John Doe number 2 getting out, shutting the passenger side door. He steps toward the front of the truck and is momentarily out of the frame of the surveillance camera. But shortly, he appears back in frame, walking toward the rear of the truck, still on the sidewalk in front of the Murrah building. Again, he turns east toward the front of the truck, looking toward the street. John Doe number 2 then walks diagonally across 5th Street toward the east, as if heading toward the YMCA or the intersection of 5th and Robinson. He again leaves the frame of the camera. Another camera shooting from another angle clearly shows the actual explosion that destroyed the federal building and killed 169 people. So what does the mysterious John Doe number 2 look like in the tapes? A man who stayed inside the Ryder truck, possibly triggering the bomb? Well, his features are obscured by a baseball cap in the portion of tape seen by our source. The same kind of cap shown in the composite drawing.
So not only was this man caught on CCTV footage that was apparently viewed by people right after the fact, but was then later obtained and confiscated by the FBI and refused to be released by them. This man was also captured and seen by multiple other witnesses, not even just there in Oklahoma City on the day of the bombing. He was captured and seen with Timothy McVeigh prior to the bombing. They had been planning and doing different things like before this even occurred. So they were caught like seen together in like convenience stores. They were seen together at the campsite where they had met up. I believe they had met up with Terry Nichols. I'm not 100% sure though, so don't quote me on that. But they had been traveling from wherever it was that they came from, and they were going to pick up the Ryder truck and then take it into Oklahoma City. So they stayed at a campground before they actually went the next day to Oklahoma City to carry out this attack. And he was seen with Timothy McVeigh by multiple witnesses in not just the Ryder truck, but prior to. And then the FBI want to come out and say, this man never existed. I saw MSNBC news reports that labeled this man as Terry Nichols. Terry Nichols was at home thousands of miles away when this took place. And granted, yes, he did have a role in this bombing. He was the one who created the bomb, and that was proven because, you know, he was the one who helped put together all of the different, you know, all the different things that were going into making these bombs. He was caught purchasing fertilizer and things like that. But on the actual day of the bombing, as per Britannica, Nichols was hundreds of miles away at his home in Harrington, Kansas. So, and this is his picture here, Terry Nichols, right? This guy, MSNBC, tried to label as this guy. Now, does that look like the same guy to you? No, it does not. So why did the FBI try to deny the existence of John Doe number 2? Why has he never been found? Why throughout all of history, and even if you go to research the Oklahoma City bombing now, like today, it will say that he, like Timothy McVeigh, was a lone wolf actor. Okay, they'll mention Terry Nichols later. They will mention him, but they put this emphasis on Timothy McVeigh being a lone wolf actor in this plot, right? They don't even mention the discrepancy. Because, why? They never found the guy and they don't want to look stupid? Or is it because maybe he was an agent of a particular alphabet agency who was there to make sure that Timothy McVeigh actually carried out this plot? But that's crazy, right? I mean, I would never think that. That's a thought crime, in my opinion. And you should be arrested if you think that. But what do you guys think? I don't know. Let's get into... This is the local news coverage that mentioned the second and third bomb that was possibly found that day. That another aspect of this that people wanted to bury in the story, the official story of what happened that day in Oklahoma City. So let's just listen to this real quick.
Oklahoma County Bomb Squad, if their bomb disposal unit essentially is what it is, and it is what they would use to, if the report that we gave you just a few moments ago turns out to be correct, that they have found a second explosive device of some kind inside this building, they'll back that trailer down there, and the bomb squad folks will go in, and they will use that trailer. You see the bucket on the back there, sort of, this is how they would transport the explosive device away from this populated area to try to do something with it.
Confirmed through federal authorities that a second bomb has been found inside that federal building in Oklahoma City. It was an explosion at 9 o'clock this morning that did that damage you're looking at right there, blowing off the entire north face of that building. Again, you're looking at the north face there. A second bomb was found on the east side of that building. A bomb squad is on the scene. That second bomb has not exploded. We don't know quite the status yet, if they've managed to defuse it, but it has been confirmed that a second bomb was found on the east side of that building.
Just took a look down the street at the Morrow building again. I see another bomb truck going, so apparently they're going to try to get out that third bomb that's been talked about. Still a lot of activity around the Morrow building. Security concerns that another one still might go off. That's what everybody's worried about.
At the present time, the medical teams downtown are unable to get into the wreckage to retrieve more of the injured because of the presence of other bombs in the area. I've been told by the police department that just as soon as those bombs are defused, they will permit the medical teams to enter.
Just for a second. Wow, interesting. So they couldn't go in and save more people because of these other bombs that didn't go off. And it's odd to me because why, if there was that big of an explosion, and if these bombs were held within this truck, right, why would it make such damage to only one side of that building? It's very odd. You know, the stories that they tell and the aftermath and the, look back on what actually happened. It's just so very interesting, guys. At least it is to me. And it doesn't make sense a lot of the times. And so you have to ask questions and wonder why. And then it seems like when you do ask those questions, you're called a crazy person. You're a conspiracy theorist. What are you talking about, you kook? Get back inside your house, and we're taking your guns because you're a risk to yourself and others. This is what you get. This is what you get from the federal government, because you want to know how a truck and a man could pull this off all by himself. And then they had all kind of coverage and bomb squads there retrieving a second and third bomb that never went off, even though they were housed in the same building. That a very large explosion took out half of the building, 1/3 of this Murray building, but it didn't set off or trigger the other two bombs. Isn't that like kind of like bombing 101? Like once one sets off, like the other one kind of gets triggered? Or am I just stupid? I mean, I don't know anything about bombs. You guys let me know. But it seems very odd. And then this is another thing that was reported on the day of, and even after the fact of the second and third bombs, that was then kind of backtracked, and they walked it back and said, no, there was only just the one, and there was no other suspect, there was no other John Doe. 2, it was just Timothy McVeigh and the one Ryder truck and Terry Nichols, who helped put it all together, and you guys can just shut the hell up now. So that's all there is to that story, guys. And if you don't believe the official narrative, then, well, you're a bad person, and you probably should be in jail. And you might ask yourself, if you don't really buy what I'm saying, or if you don't really think that there are any sort of conspiracies that happen, or if you're just not a believer of that sort of thing, and you're just a rule follower and a narrative listener too, why would the government do this, right? Why would they have the motive? Like, why would they work in tandem with these different people to cause chaos and to cause all of this devastation to their own people? Why would they do it? Well, one theory brought to us by Wikipedia. Okay, let's see. Another theory alleged that President Bill Clinton had either known about the bombing in advance or had approved the bombing. It is also believed that the bombing was done by the government to frame the militia movement or enact anti-terrorism legislation while using McVeigh as a scapegoat. But still other theories claim that McVeigh conspired with the CIA in plotting the bombing. In a 1993 letter to his sister published by the New York Times in 1998, McVeigh claimed that during his time in Fort Bragg, he and 9 others were recruited in a secret black ops team that smuggled drugs into the United States to fund covert activities and were to work hand in hand with civilian police agencies to quiet anyone whom was deemed a security risk. In a 2001 declaration, Terry Nichols, McVeigh's convicted co-conspirator, also alleged that McVeigh reported in December 1992 how he had been recruited to carry out undercover missions, which initially involved visiting gun shows and making contact with a loose network of anti-government and far-right sympathizers. This undercover activity allegedly escalated to armed robberies and a planned bombing under the direction of FBI agent Larry A. Potts. David Paul Hammer, a convicted murderer in the same facility as McVeigh for about 2 years, reported that McVeigh stated similar allegations to him, that McVeigh was an undercover operative for the Department of Defense, and that Andreas Strassmeer was a similar operative but with a different handler, and that they had worked together in planning the bombing. Who's this? Let me see. Sorry, I didn't even read that part. Let me see who. Is this John Doe number 2? What? German national? Okay, we'll have to look at him later. I thought they were going to have a picture, but Wikipedia fails again. So that's one theory why the government may have done this. Another theory is this. Okay, so Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh and David Paul Hammer, which is the guy they just mentioned, were among the first group of inmates to be housed in the newly refurbished death row of Indiana's Terre Haute Maximum Security Penitentiary. During Hammer's time on death row, he wrote 2 books on the Oklahoma City bomber that killed 168 people. And the books were based on first-hand knowledge gleaned in conversations from Timothy McVeigh right up until his execution. He writes, with assistance from attorneys and their investigators and from journalists, I have tried to verify the information McVeigh provided. We have obtained thousands of documents and exhibits via FOIA requests and litigation. My attorney or his investigator has interviewed some of the individuals mentioned by McVeigh. Timothy McVeigh was no mastermind, Hammer writes. Tim had some fine qualities. He was able to follow instructions to the T, but his intelligence was average at best. His communication skills were limited, and he definitely was not a leader. Okay, interesting. Go on. So Hammer provides the caveat that his information is based upon what McVeigh told him over time. He feels it's a solid version of the truth with some inconsistencies. McVeigh stated he was recruited while in the Army by the Major, quote unquote, and was sheep-dipped to infiltrate patriot militia groups. He never disclosed the mysterious Major by name. His unit was attached to the Defense Department. According to the Major, the unit was so secret that even the U.S. Secretary of Defense was unaware of its existence. The Major further explained that the agenda for this secret unit was primarily domestic intelligence gathering and internal threat evaluations with an emphasis on direct counteraction operations. Funding and support for the operations would be provided through sources unconnected to the U.S. government. McVeigh was to familiarize himself with the rhetoric of the extreme right-wing ideology and create the plausible aura of a disgruntled soldier. McVeigh's sidekick Terry Nichols said, in December of 1992, Timothy McVeigh told me while he was serving in the U.S. Army, he had been recruited to carry out undercover missions. Hammer suggests McVeigh was a gung-ho, military authoritarian follower and had little political affinity towards the militia group he was infiltrating. So, interesting, guys. Very, very interesting information about Timothy McVeigh. So, was he an MK Ultra plant who was trying to basically further the agenda of anti-right-wing, legislation, basically? Were they trying to infiltrate these groups to try to further their control on gun-loving American patriots? Or was it maybe more like they were trying to pass legislation that would allow them to spy on people, and they wanted some sort of threat, basically, to give them the leverage and the reason, basically, to pass this legislation? That seems kind of plausible, and you might be, having some little ringing in the back of your head go off, because this was a big theory surrounding 9/11. And what do I mean by that? Well, do you guys know when the Patriot Act was actually written? Do y'all know? Anybody? Yeah. So, if you don't know, the Patriot Act was passed in 2001, shortly, and I mean days, after the attack on, the Twin Towers in New York City. That was obviously done by Saudi Arabia and, all of the Iraqis and the Afghanistans and such as, and, it was not done by our government. I mean, you guys know that, right? You're crazy. Y'all are crazy, okay? Don't hit me with those conspiracy theories. I don't want to hear them. But leave them in the comments if you want. So, Ron Paul came out and he was spitting some truth, as he does. We love a Ron Paul. Police state was planned. 9/11 just provided an opportunity to implement it. Okay. September 11th is remembered for a number of reasons, and one of the most important often goes unnoticed. And it was used as an excuse to degrade the liberties of Americans through the passage of the U.S. Patriot Act. The uniting, strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to interpret and obstruct terrorism act. If that's not a mouthful, I don't know what is. Mouthful of bullshit. It was signed into law by President George W. Bush on October 26, 2001, just 45 days after 9/11. The act passed in the Senate with a vote of 98-1 and passed in the House with a vote of 357-66. I want to know who the one senator, it was probably Ron Paul, I think. It had to have been Ron Paul, but I'm going to look into that. Who was that one senator that said, no way, I like him? Former Texas Congressman Ron Paul was one of the few who voted against the act when he was in the House of Representatives and had been speaking out against it ever since. Paul is known for his presidential campaigns, and when he was seeking the Republican nomination in the 2012 election, he reminded the world of one of the most critical aspects of the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was written many, many years before 9/11, Paul said during a speech in Ames, Iowa in December 2011. He noted that the attacks provided an opportunity for some people to do what they wanted to do. God bless this man. I voted for Ron Paul in 2012, and it is a shame. It is an absolute disgrace on this country that he was not able to gain the traction that he needed to actually have a leg up and stand any sort of chance in that election. It's just disgraceful. It really is. Instead, who did we run? We ran I think John McCain with Sarah Palin. I don't even know. Just disgraceful. This man has been telling truth and has been a godsend for, people that are anti-government for so long. And he is truly a blessing. And, his son is doing great work too. I like Rand Paul, but Ron Paul was such a force. And so the reason why I'm mentioning this is because they tried to pass something similar after the Timothy McVeigh incident, the Oklahoma City bombing. they tried to pass, it was like a USAPA or something like that, a different act basically, that had all of the same components, pretty much almost all of the exact same components of the Patriot Act. And they tried to pass it then, but it didn't pass because I guess there were still some people with some sense about them in the Senate and in the Congress that were like, no, this is too far. Yes, we don't want bad things like this to happen. We don't want there to be terrorism within U.S. soils, but we cannot spy on American citizens. We cannot go this far as to pass government legislation that allows for spying and that allows for phone tapping. It allows for illegal warrants, you know, overreaching, following people and trying to figure out if they're going to commit a crime, you know, like we're watching you, we have no reason to. We have no, you know, we're just going based off of suspicion. These are all things that led to the police state that we're in now. And the Patriot Act needs to be completely revoked, and that law should not even have ever been passed. The only reason why it was passed after 9/11 because it was so big of a thing and people were so outraged that something like this could happen. And so they did it under the guise of trying to combat terrorism. And so that's why it was blamed on the Middle Easterns and these Iraqis and these Saudi Arabians and all of these scary Middle Easterners that we needed to then go fight a 20-year war to defeat when we never actually defeated them. And once we left Afghanistan, the same militant groups eventually took power right after we left. It was all for nothing. And now we are stuck with this Patriot Act that allows our government to continue to spy on us, continue to take away our civil liberties, and continue with their bullshit that they love to do. So, with all that being said, guys, what are your thoughts on it? I would love to know them, and I would love to know what you thought of this video and these two incidents, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and give the channel a chance. I would very, very much appreciate that if you would do that for me, guys, because, you know, I'm struggling over here. Truly I'm struggling because y'all know it's hard out here in these YouTube streets, especially when they're hating so hard as they do. So if you could subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. And let me know in the comments what y'all think about it, guys, because these are weird times we're living in, and it's interesting to me to learn about all of this history and how some of these things you can just piece them together so seamlessly to understand how we are where we're at now. And if you're paying attention, then it makes sense to you. And if you're not paying attention, maybe you should start now. Okay, just a thought. So y'all let me know. Okay, until next time, I will see y'all later. Bye.
I just tell the truth, and telling the truth is crazy in a world full of lies. If you mix brilliance with bravery, that we can ignite something. Even this conversation alone can ignite the people.
The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.